We have lots of NHL news and rumors to discuss today, mostly focusing on the Montreal Canadiens. They're in the market for multiple players, including a D as well as a forward. And does Xhekaj fit with their long-term plans? One NHL media member suggested he could even find himself traded to a division rival. We'll discuss how that could work out. Plus, John Gibson's set to return here in the near future. Will the interest in the netminder pick up, and could he find himself on the move? Plus, Brad Marchand and the Bruins are getting closer to a contract extension. News from the waiver wire, lots of other injury updates and roster moves coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Again, once again to my makeshift TSH studios, which is like my secondary location here in the house to record videos. So certainly want to touch on a lot of different things that come up tonight. Some very interesting topics, which we'll get into here in just a few moments, especially considering could Xhekaj end up with a division rival, a hated division rival of that, if the Habs do decide to move on. We'll discuss that here in just a few minutes. But first up, longtime NHL defenseman Marco Scandella, who finished out his career most recently with the St. Louis Blues. Of course, did have a stop in Montreal for one or parts of 2 years, I believe. Played in Buffalo for a bit as well. And, obviously in Minnesota, I believe, is where he started. So Scandella had a fairly long career, played in 784 games, had a fairly successful career, was a pretty steady, at times, top 4, top 6 defenseman. So he's decided that after his contract expired this past offseason and there was no takers, no offers, really nothing, for him to really move on from, that he's going to call it a career, enjoy some family time and start to travel more and just kind of chill. So Marco Scandella's NHL career is officially over. Updates from the NHL waiver wire. Now, yesterday we had Utah plays Kyler Yamamoto and Riley Tufte from the Bruins. Were both on waivers. Both did clear. Both have been reassigned. We no word on the Bruins extending a contract to Tyler Johnson just yet. That is something that's, I guess, some people still think is going to happen, but not sure if it hasn't happened yet when it's going to. Some other news and notes around the league, including some roster moves. The Flyers appear to be calling up goaltender Alexei Kolosov. Of course, we know that they had to work hard to get him to come over from Russia, and the agreement was that by the end of October, I believe it was, that if he wasn't happy, he could get back to Russia and end up going back to the KHL. I know they haven't been pleased with Ivan Fedotov. And Sam Urson, of course, the other part of that goaltending tandem, hasn't had the greatest results either. They have recalled the netminder. He's expected to make his NHL debut tomorrow as they face the Montreal Canadiens. So it looks like he's going to get his shot due to the fact that they haven't been pleased overall with their goaltending. So we'll see, I guess, how much he makes of that and whether or not it ends up him, sticking around longer term in the NHL with the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers also today announced that one of their top prospects, and kind of a surprise, to be honest, on training camp, Jet Lushenko, the first-round pick in 2024, has been sent back to his junior team in OHL, the Guelph Storm. He was a player that, like I said, very much surprised them at the end of the day. Had a surprising, impressive training camp, earned himself a spot, and at this point is going to be better for the experience long term. They're very pleased with the pick and pleased with the progress, but felt it was best for him to head back to junior after having a few games of being a healthy scratch. It just made the most sense for that to go down the way it did. And Cam York, also with Philly, is going to be out for a little while. Minimum of 2 weeks, could be longer. So we'll see how they handle that. Erik Johnson will be able to get more playing time in his absence. The Penguins have sent goaltender Tristan Jarry to the American Hockey League. Now, you might be wondering how and why that happened. Ultimately, it's for a conditioning stint. He hasn't played in a little while. He's been a healthy scratch. Found himself in the press box. They can send him down there for up to 2 weeks. No waivers required. It's just a conditioning loan. The player obviously has to agree to it. And it gets him a chance to go down there and play. He's had some chance to work one-on-one with the goaltending coaches. And now it's a chance for him to see if he can get his game back in order and gain the trust and respect back from the Penguins. A few other notes as well. The Flames have sent Matt Coronado down to the American Hockey League. That's a little bit surprising to me, but they've done so. Obviously, he's still waivers exempt and can go down, and it's not completely the worst thing for him in long-term development, but I thought he had played well enough to stick around. Apparently, they felt different. Chicago has recalled Drew Commesso and sent down Isaac Phillips. So some change there within the Blackhawks prospect system. Some news of the New York Islanders. Defenseman Alexei Romanov is out day to day. I'm not quite sure exactly the injury, but he did play in the last game and is out now. Matt Martin has been signed to a one-year contract for the remainder of the year. Islanders have not released the details, but I believe it's league minimum. They've also recalled Pierre Engvall and Hudson Fasching. So a little bit surprised in a way that they recalled Engvall already. He hasn't really been the greatest in the American Hockey League. Lou Lamoriello did say that it was it was meant to be a wake-up call for him, and I guess we will see. A little bit surprised. The Islanders also today did not make any players or head coach Patrick Waugh available to the media, which I believe is a requirement. So I'm a little bit surprised. Not sure what's going on there. They're playing the Florida Panthers tonight. As I record this video, they were in the lead, but lots of playing time here left in that one. So we'll see how the Islanders proceed. Boston Bruins captain Brad Marchand, of course, we know is one of the names that a lot of teams are keeping an eye on as a pending unrestricted free agent. Could be a free agent next offseason. That doesn't sound like it's likely going to happen. I think many people, myself included, expected Marchand to re-sign with the Bruins and extend his stay for at least a few more years. I mean, obviously, he's going to be getting into his mid to late 30s now, so it's hard to say exactly how long he plays. He's been through a lot of injuries the past couple of years as well, but still, he plays with an edge. He's highly skilled, lots of experience. He would be a highly sought-after player if he was on the open market, there is no doubt. But Elliot Friedman was reporting tonight on Saturday Headlines on Hockey Night in Canada that the Bruins and Marchand have been working away in an extension. They are getting close. It's not quite done yet. But it sounds like it's going to be a 3-year extension. No word on exactly what kind of AAV we're likely looking at here. I know the Bruins and Marchand's last contract was very much a team-friendly deal based on how he performed through a majority of it. So we'll see what the numbers look like, but Captain Marchand expected to extend his time in Boston for upwards of 3 years. We'll see. Hopefully we get confirmation of that here soon enough. Now, before we get into the Habs rumors, one other rumor we want to take a look at here as well is John Gibson. We know that John Gibson's been a name that's been out there forever in the rumor mill for possibly being moved by the Anaheim Ducks. NHL insider Nick Kyprios was talking about Gibson recently, saying that apparently Carolina Hurricanes had made a strong push to acquire him in a trade this offseason. Obviously, it never came to be. We don't know the exact package details or asking price, etc. But the Hurricanes were heavily involved in trade talks with the Ducks to acquire him. And he wonders, with Gibson's health kind of getting back in order here after having emergency surgery around beginning of the season. We're not quite there yet, but he's going to be probably starting to skate soon. Should hopefully return over the next little while. If the Carolina Hurricanes and other teams will pick up interest in his services. I know I mentioned some other, we'll call the goaltender needy teams that are, definitely have some issues and are looking for potential change, like the Avalanche. I know they've been playing Anunin. Georgiev has not been good and he's been getting sat out a lot. So we'll see. Pittsburgh obviously has some question marks. I mean, Yoel Blomqvist, the youngster, has been phenomenal. I mean, he gave up 4 goals to the Oilers last night. They lost 4-0, but he made a ton of big saves and he was absolutely peppered with shots. But again, would they like to move Tristan Jarry? I believe they would. Is there a deal there maybe that could be made? Even Detroit, they have a number of goaltenders in their organization. Outside of Alex Lyon, though, not getting a ton of consistency. So we'll see what happens, but certainly with Gibson's health kind of getting back in order, you have to wonder if a potential trade will materialize. But like I said, we've been talking about Gibson for so long in the rumor mill, it's really difficult to imagine a deal coming together. Reportedly, Pat Verbeek, the GM of the Ducks, will retain some salary if he's getting a good return. Probably a little bit more willing to retain now than years past, given that obviously the tenure on the contract has been reduced. There's not as much time left there, so we'll see. But Gibson's name with teams that are struggling in goal will certainly get some interesting looks. At the same time, like I said, early in his career he was phenomenal, and then his numbers really took a dip. So I'm not sure if that's if he's going to really be a big solution for a team out there. Hard to say, but it's also hard to imagine it being the case as well. Now, a bunch of rumors around the Montreal Canadiens. We talked yesterday about the fact that they wanted a top 4 right shot defenseman, and we're going to talk about that a little bit further here today. I know we'd also talked about Nashville wanting a centerman, and we talked about Nashville having a player like Dante Fabro being somebody on their roster who they would be willing to trade to accomplish what they want to bring in that centerman. Well, of course, a lot of NHL insiders, like I started to do yesterday, have kind of connected the dots. We've heard it from a few, including TSN's Darren Dreger, kind of linking Fabro as a name that Montreal, he believes, will have some interest in and would be a potential fit for that top 4 D role that they're looking to fill. I mean, he's the right age group. He's not, he's in mid-20s, right shot. He's not signed to a big money contract, not a long-term deal. He could be a stopgap solution, and it could be a case where if he goes there, fits in, maybe he carves out a role for himself. Hard to say, right? But at the same time, maybe he's somebody that can come in and then eventually be flipped or something, right? So like Fabro's a guy in Nashville that they're willing to part with. He fits the description of what Montreal is looking for. When he was a college player, he was a lot more highly regarded as a top defensive player. Since he's been in the NHL, not saying he hasn't lived up to it, but not to the level a lot of people thought. Like, Fabro was a very highly touted prospect in Nashville at one point, and now that the fact that where they're at, that they're willing to move him, and this is not the first time his name has come up. His name has come up periodically in the last year or two as well. But he would make a lot of sense for Montreal for what they're looking to do. Like I said, they're looking for a stopgap there, right? So, of course, we know that Nashville wants a center. Now, it may not work out this way, but we know the Habs would probably like to move Christian Dvorak. He is a centerman. Now, he may not be a centerman with enough offensive upside for Nashville's liking, but he certainly can play the role and does have some offensive output, but he has struggled to put it all together in Montreal. His time there hasn't really been the most productive and the most efficient there. But that is a potential kind of deal that a lot of people are piecing together. We know that they want to move Dvorak. We know that they need a right shot D. Dvorak for Fabro is something that's being tossed around as being a possible deal. I don't know that Dvorak is going to be what Montreal would have to give up to get Fabro. They may want something with a little bit more higher end skill. But I don't know that Montreal really has anybody else higher in the lineup that they would be willing to move. Now, I know we've tossed around the idea. This is really just me saying, would they move Kirby Dach? And to be honest, I don't know if they'll... I would think at some point they may be willing to consider that. However, there's no way they're moving Kirby Dach for a guy like Fabro or somebody that they don't see being a long-term fit. So that's not going to happen. So I'm not really sure if there's a perfect connection there, or maybe these have to be separate deals. But a lot of people are starting to kind of connect the dots here and say, well, how about Fabro for Dvorak? And it does make sense on a lot of levels. It's just a matter of if he's going to be what Nashville wants. Now, another player getting a lot of attention out of Montreal is Xhekaj. Lots of attention, of course. We know with the comments from Marty St. Louis kind of ignited things here again. Lots of NHL and Montreal media have been kind of weighing in with their 2 cents here. I know a couple of names to watch, like Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette and Montreal Hockey Inside Out. He says that the Xhekaj's on a short leash with head coach Marty St. Louis. And then TVA Sports, JC Lajoie says that he may not be a fit for their long-term plans in Montreal, giving all the promising young D that they have in their system. We've talked about the fact, of course, that he can be physical, he can fight, but his defensive awareness and his overall hockey IQ, just the overall play, needs to be better for him to be a regular, everyday NHL defenseman and not just be that, that enforcer type player. And Marty St. Louis, like I said before, Marty St. Louis, I don't really think wants one of his defensemen always having to drop the gloves all the time and going down to, whether 5D or less for long stretches due to big penalty minutes. Xhekaj was already had some rough games, or more so in the preseason, that where he took a lot of penalties too. So not just like fighting majors, but like minors. So, he wants him to be a better version of himself. And like I said, he has a lot to be competitive with in Montreal for that playing time. Obviously at this point, seeing as how their season hasn't started the greatest, and that their young D is still, if as much as the potential is there and the promise is there, I think they've seen how a lot of these young D may not be ready for as big of a role as they're getting. They've also encountered some injuries, so maybe they bring in another, some more vets to kind of take the pressure off a little bit, right? And Xhekaj, I don't think they're going to rush into this at all. The most interesting part about Xhekaj is Stu Cowan, after saying that, he's on a short leash, he suggested if they did move him, that could he be going to arch rival, and at this point, it kind of become a hated rival, the Ottawa Senators. And the connection here is, of course, most of you would know this, is if you're a Habs fan and you like Xhekaj, where did he play junior hockey? He played his junior hockey in Hamilton and the OHL. Who owned that franchise? Michael Andlauer. Who managed it and helped them win a championship? Steve Staios. So Cowan says that Staios and Andlauer were big fans of Xhekaj at that point in his career, and they've seen firsthand what he can do, what he can bring. Now, of course, the NHL is a whole different level. I'm not sure what the full details would be or how it would work out. I mean, it's funny to even talk about this because I know that Xhekaj has been a thorn in the Habs side. I know I've seen a lot of Habs fans make the comments that he owns them and all that, which is completely blown out of proportion. Xhekaj does not own the Ottawa Senators. Prior to the regular season started, he had never been involved in a game where they even beat them. They finally beat Ottawa for the first time in like 9 or 10 games early this season. And really Xhekaj didn't really play a role for the victory, to be honest. So, in all honesty, like, he's had his moments because of the way he plays with a lot of the Senators players, including Brady, Tkachuk, Ridley, Gregg, the guys that are more likely going to mix it up and stir it up and stuff like that. To join a rival like that would be extremely rare, and it would be extremely interesting. I think, and for Ottawa's sake, as much as they probably, they've had their rivalries with them for sure, but it's one of those guys that you hate to play against, but you like him when he's on your team. And you'd rather have him on your side than not. So I think, they could certainly get over that and welcome him if they figure out a trade. It would just be so weird. It really would, especially after how his career started and after, that rivalry is really intensified. Can you imagine if Montreal and Ottawa pulled off a trade together involving Xhekaj switching sides? Wow, that would really ignite the fan base. They also, Elliot Friedman on Saturday Headlines tonight, also talked about the fact that the Habs are not only looking for top 4 defensemen, but they're poking around for a forward with edge. I said that before. I don't honestly think they value Michael Pezzetta that much. I don't think he's got a long-term future there. He has not been in the lineup regularly this year, and I think they'd like to have a player with edge that can play more meaningful minutes and be more, just play more regular shifts. There's some guys that they can fight and all that, but if they can't do all the other things and their liability out there, coaches don't really want that anymore. So, they are poking around for that too. Now, Friedman did say that they've made it known in any of these deals that Ken Hughes is looking to make that they don't want to really mess with their long-term roster plans or long-term outlook. So that tells us that they probably don't want to move any young players that they really see as being a big part of the team's future, which is not overly shocking here. But they have lots of draft capital, whether it be, second round, third round, all these. I can't see them moving a first, maybe, I guess, for the right guy. But, at the end of the day, probably mid-round picks. And there's lots of prospects that I think could be moved that are not even necessarily going to get a chance to play with them, that could maybe benefit from a change of scenery. Because a lot of these guys, like a lot of these teams, when you build a prospect pool the way you have, a lot of these guys are going to have to move on to get opportunities. So we will see what happens, but the Montreal talk is just it's everywhere right now. I think Ken Hughes is extremely busy. I wouldn't be shocked if we do see a couple of Habs trades sooner than later. And with Stu Cowan speculating about Xhekaj to Ottawa, That is just absolutely crazy talk, and it just, like I said, the thought of it is weird. But like I said, I think maybe he does fit there. It's an interesting concept, but it just seems weird because of the rivalry. But let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.